Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jet and I'm a recovery nurse. I'm an overseas trained nurse currently working in the UK. So it's a wonderful Sunday afternoon and I've decided to make a new vlog, and this time I'm going to share the 10 things I'm still struggling with while working and living in the UK. I arrived in the UK last 26th of August 2021, although I was in a 10-day hotel quarantine due to COVID, so my official arrival in Yeovil, Somerset was actually September 6th. And counting the days, it's already been almost 6 months now. So prior to my arrival in the UK, of course I did a little bit of research while I was still back home in the Philippines on how it's like to live in the UK. But well, as they say, first-hand experience is still the best. And although I am prepared, mentally prepared for some of these things that I'm going to share to you today, for some reason I'm still in the process of learning how to live with them. So here is my list, starting with number 1, calling people by their first name. So this is really awkward and this is really weird for me, coming from a culture wherein it is actually disrespectful if you call older people by their first name. For example, you have a co-worker who is 10 years older than you. In the Philippines, we use honorifics. If that person is a male, I would call him kuya. If that person is a female, ate. Or sometimes in the hospital, we just call them sir or ma'am. In the UK, and for any English-speaking country for that matter, they don't have honorifics like that. For example, if your coworker's name is Hannah and she's 10 years older, then you just call her Hannah. If he's Mike, you just call him Mike. You don't say Mom Hannah or Sir Mike. They don't like that. Same is true with your superiors. For example, your manager, your line manager, or your head nurse. They just call them by their first name. For example, my line manager, his name is Andrew. I just call him Andy, which is weird because he is actually the same age as my dad. So it's like calling my dad, hey Joseph. At first I was really uncomfortable doing that. I've also had a patient who was 92 years old. She's a lovely lady, but she has dementia, but she wanted to be called Anne, although her first name is Phyllis. In the Philippines, if you have that kind of patient, we usually call them Lola or Nanay. So if she was in the Philippines, I would call her Lola Ann or Nanay Ann. But in the UK, it's just Anne. And my real grandma is even younger than her. And I'll never call her Florence. I will forever call her Nanang. Yeah, it's a weird story. But that's the point. In Asian culture, in most Southeast Asian countries, and some East Asian as well, we do have honorifics for these kinds of situations. So it's not only older people, your seniors, but also with consultants. They call consultant surgeons and consultant anesthetists by their first name, unless of course if that person is somewhat new or just a visiting consultant or a locum consultant. In the Philippines, we will never call them by their first name. We usually address them with doctor and their surname. So for example, Dr. Reyes or Dr. Cruz. In the UK, you just call them Robert or hey Matt. A typical conversation between a recovery nurse and an anesthetist would be like somewhere like, so Matt, can you prescribe a fluid for me? Something like that. Which is, well, at one point you don't feel like you're a lesser being than them. It's just weird. It's just weird and somehow uncomfortable for me growing up with that kind of culture. So I might as well need time before I get fully used to it. Number 2, the ability to say no when you're not comfortable doing something or when you just don't know something. I'm still struggling with it because back from where I come from, most people, it's considered impolite to say no if they ask you to do something at work. So for example, hey Jet, can you do this for me? Or hey Jet, can you go to this area and do this? You'll just automatically, okay sir, yes sir, opo, yes po, okay po, sige po. We usually say that because if you say no, especially if you are a newbie, they might see you as someone who is rebellious or in the local vernacular, ma-attitude. So here in the UK, I don't mean to appear submissive or anything like that, but it's just that it's the automatic Filipino inside me that says yes. I instantly become a yes man when they ask me to do something. I'm still in the process of learning when to say no, and related to that, especially for our Filipino friends, it is actually okay to say no, and it's actually okay to say I don't know. There are no follow-up questions. Like if you say no, they won't ask why not. They'll just say, oh, okay, I'll find another person then. I don't know, maybe it's an embedded fear in me as a Filipino trained nurse. Like if I try to say no, I'm afraid that I will be investigated and will be caught that actually my excuse is lame. I don't have a valid excuse or a valid reason to say no or decline. Like 50% of the time, I still tend to say yes when they ask me to do something. I definitely need to lose that. Number 3, which is somehow related to number 2, calling in sick when you're not feeling well. In the Philippines, if you try to do this over the phone, like for example, you are supposed to be at work, but then you're not feeling well, like you have this really severe headache, you can't just, phone in and then, I'm sorry, I can't come in today because I have a bad headache. You will be seen like you're just making excuses or you're just lazy to come in. More often than not, your head nurse or your charge nurse will be interrogating you. Like in order for you to get off sick, you have to pass through the eye of a needle. Like that's how we say it in Filipino. In other words, it is more difficult and more complicated to call in sick in the Philippines compared to here in the UK. It doesn't mean to say also that you can just call in sick every now and then. If they notice that you're doing this too often, then you will be interrogated, you will be asked, or something like that, or a risk assessment or something like that. In the UK, if you try to call in sick, they just accept whatever condition you have. Like it doesn't have to be a very severe illness or a debilitating condition. They even let you off if you say that you have a sore throat or if you're feeling feverish. They understand. I think in some places they even consider if you have a mental health related reason. So why am I struggling with it? Sometimes there were days wherein I honestly didn't feel 100% well. Maybe I have a cold or I have a mild muscle pain. I just ignore it and go to work because I don't know, that's how I grew up in the Philippines. Like, come on, you can walk. Back home, if you tell your manager these kinds of reason, you might be told off and hear words, something like, you can walk, can you? You can lift things, can you? You can move your arms and legs, can you? So you're not sick, you can come to work. Or something like, you don't sound sick, be here at 7 a.m. I'm not saying all employers are like that, or I'm not saying all managers are like that in the Philippines, but in my experience, most of my managers are like that. So I didn't want to risk it. I didn't want to, be interrogated. Okay, fine, I'll just go to work. This but a scratch, this but a headache, something like that. I'll just chuck, 2 ibuprofen and then I'll just go to work. So in the UK, they respect you for it. They give you time to recuperate, or they give you time to, heal. Number 4, tea breaks. This is an unusual kind of break that we don't have in the Philippines. So in the UK, they give us 15 minutes of what they call a tea break. So it's not necessarily a time period where you make some tea for yourself or make some coffee. They just call it tea break because it's a short break. You can do whatever you like if you just want to hang out in the break room, watch television or play some mobile games, it's up to you. It's just a 15-minute break. I'm struggling with it because I still can't accept the concept if I look back where I came from. So in the Philippines, we usually have a lunch break which lasts for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, or if you're lucky, 45 minutes, but I don't think that ever happened. But anyway, that's the point. We only have 30-minute break every day. So unlike people who work in offices where they have their noon break, which I think lasts for an hour, in the hospital, we don't have that luxury because we are paid for each hour. In the UK, the difference is that there's a 1-hour rest period in each regular shift. And this 1 hour break is actually unpaid. So, well, the idea is you have to take your break because you're not paid for it. In the Philippines, the reason why we take quick breaks is because we were paid during that hour. It's part of our salary. Again, it is different with office people, with people who work behind desks, because I don't think they are paid for their noon breaks. But for those working in the bedside in the clinical area, the employer, for example, the hospital, has every right to, pull us back to work in the middle of our break when we are needed. In the UK, it's different. We have a 1 hour rest period. So if you are working in a 7-hour shift, for example, you will have 15-minute tea break, and then depending on how you use it, you can have 30-minute or 45-minute lunch break. And whenever my workmates ask me to go for my break, to go for my tea break, initially I used to decline it. Like, no, I'm good. No, I'm okay. No, I just had a big breakfast, so I'm not really hungry. They usually were more persuasive, if I might call that. Sometimes they even force me to have a break. If you think about it, it's not paid, so you have to have your break. Yeah, I'm still struggling to accept that concept because I feel bad. Deep inside, I feel bad when I'm on a break. Like, I don't deserve this. I had to remember that this is not paid, so I deserve this break, so I have to get my break. Fifth reason is English. Yes, I am struggling with British English. Yeah, I've passed my English test. Back in college, we studied under English instructions, and I like to say that I'm a pretty good English speaker and communicator, but British English is just different. I thought I knew English, but then I came here and then like, whoa, I sound like an idiot. I know that the British accent is something that is not familiar to me as a Filipino growing up. In the Philippines, we are more familiar with the American accent, and it also follows that we are more familiar with American slangs and American phrases. So coming in the UK and deciding to stay and live here and work here, I still struggle understanding some of the British phrases or British terms or British slang. And I'm just in England. I wonder what our fellow nurses up north, especially in Scotland, the farther you go north, the more difficult it could be. I think even native British people can find it difficult to understand those people from the north sometimes. So I will be posting a video featuring the words and terms or abbreviations that I've encountered when I started working in the UK and what they actually mean and how are they different to what we usually encounter back home. Like, for example, the phrase, I want to spend a penny. Like, who would have thought that is referring to toilet or going to the loo? And even the phrase going to the loo didn't make sense to me when I first came here. Like, where's loo? Even that phrase was confusing to me. What more when I heard them say, I'm going to spend a penny. Like, spend it where? Did you bring your wallet? Like, we don't have a vending machine here. I don't know. I didn't realize that they were actually referring to going to the toilet. Actually, I've never asked why it was called that way. Now I'm curious. By the way, I'm halfway through my list. If you're new to this channel, my name is Jet and I'm a recovery nurse. This is Jet from Recovery, and you are watching the Disney Channel. Number 6 of the things that I struggle with is raising your concern or speaking up is actually okay. Like, I struggle with this. Again, it's related to saying no or saying I don't know. Back from where I came from, I think most Filipinos, sometimes we tend to be overcritical of one another, and even foreigners. We tend to scrutinize every other thing that other people do. Say, for example, grammar, or when a person speaks English or writes in English. I don't know, it's a toxic Filipino culture sometimes that why are we on the lookout for this person to say something wrong or commit a mistake? I think it's a Filipino thing. Like, we criticize everything, every other detail that other people say or do. This is related to raising concerns. Because of this type of culture, it's somehow difficult to actually raise your concerns during, for example, during a department meeting or during a unit meeting, because if you do raise your concern, if you try to speak up, you'll be seen like someone who has an attitude problem, or someone who doesn't want to cooperate, or someone who just don't get it. So it's actually difficult to speak up in the Philippines. So coming here and being introduced to this different work culture, it's a really struggle for me whenever they ask my opinion during meetings or during clinical governance, because there's a little part of me which hesitates to speak up because I don't want to be seen like I might say something wrong, or I might sound stupid, or I might sound silly to these people. But in reality, what we Filipinos or what we Asians need to understand is that British people actually don't care with how you say things. I mean, grammar wise or pronunciation wise, they care more of the substance of what you are saying. If it sounds stupid to you, definitely won't sound stupid to them. Like, they always tell us there's no stupid questions. It's okay to ask, it's okay to speak up if you're not comfortable or if there's something bothering you, and they're actually open for it. As they say, if you don't speak up, they'll never know. If you don't say, you don't get. Number 7, food. So hang on, I'm not struggling because I don't like the food. Actually, living in the UK, I always thought that I had to give up rice or I had to give up Asian cuisine, but actually you can eat more Asian food than British ones, because even the British people, they love our food, which is great. But anyway, that's not the point of my list. What I'm saying here is that I'm struggling with the concept of lunch. In the UK, they eat sandwich for lunch, or they'll have burger and fries for lunch. They call it chips, not fries. Or lasagna or pasta. So in the Philippines, these things that they eat for lunch, we only eat them as snacks, like in between meals. A proper Filipino meal will be comprised of a bowl of rice, or wait, 2 bowls of rice, and then some rice toppings, what we call in Filipino ulam. So that is a proper meal for Filipinos. Whenever my British co-workers, for example, when we go for lunch, at the same time, I open my lunch box and I will have sinigang, and then a bowl of rice, and then my workmate has some pasta of some sort, and she calls it her lunch. And that is really a different concept for me, like something that I'm still struggling to understand. Like, how do these people, how do they feel full with this type of meal? Because when I tried to do it before my wife arrived in the UK. I tried having these sandwiches for lunch, and I still feel hungry all the time. How do you feel full with a sandwich for lunch? I probably will feel full for the next 30 minutes, but then after that, my stomach will grumble again. In the UK, they don't eat rice as often as we do. Like, maybe some British people, they would eat rice once a day, or even less frequent than that, sometimes once a week. But for Asians, especially Southeast Asians, we cannot survive without rice. Our physiologic makeup is 90% rice. Number 8, and this is another work related. I'm still struggling with how many protocols, teams, or roles the NHS system has. Like, we have a pain team, we have a diabetes team, we have a tissue and viability team, we have dementia team, and we have a resuscitation team. I'm lucky that I don't work in the ward, inside the operating theater. Whenever we need help, there's only one person to go to, the anesthetist. Or if it's a surgical concern, well, the surgeon. But in the ward, I'm not sure who to call if my patient experiences a specific kind of problem. Like, for example, if I'm in the ward and my patient will be gasping for breath, do I call the outreach nurse? Do I call the ward doctor? Or do I call the resuscitation team? You know what I mean? I think it is overwhelming for a newly hired staff to get to know these different pathways, these different protocols that exist in the NHS. Like, it has a good purpose. I know it's effective, but it just can get overwhelming. It needs some time to be remembered or to get used to. Okay, I'm almost done with my list. So item number 9, the presence of packs and sets. For example, there was one time my colleague wanted to insert an intermittent catheter, which by the way, they call an in and out catheter. So my instinct was go to the twin bin, grab an intermittent catheter or a straight catheter, some lubricant, sterile gloves, and sterile drape, syringe, and sterile water, something to clean the urethral meatus. I tried to look for these individual items in the twin bin, which of course didn't exist because they come in packs. I didn't know that they do. One of the benefits of being trained in a third world country is that you learn how to improvise and you learn how to assemble things out of individual things. Coming to a first world country where everything is prepared, everything is already in a set, it's kind of it was actually difficult because I didn't know what the pack contains. They also have a pack for IV cannulation, for starting an intravenous line. So in the Philippines, if you want to start an IV line, you usually just need the cannula with the needle, some micropore tape, a pair of scissors, and of course your fluid and its giving set. In the UK, there's an IV set with a pre-cut sticker, I think, and a transparent film that will be placed over the Benflon. So I didn't know that. So I pretty much looked stupid cutting various sizes of micropore tape in preparation for the IV cannulation because I was used to it. Like, I don't know the cannula pack exists. It was embarrassing. It's a learning thing. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the packs. It makes it more convenient, it makes it more organized, and it's just something that needs to get used to, especially if you come from a third world country. Maybe larger hospitals in the Philippines are using these packs already. It's just that I came from a small hospital, so maybe that's why I didn't know. In the UK, you don't need to improvise. For instance, we do have disposable sick balls. And this is a very common Filipino practice, especially if you're in a public hospital. If the patient wakes up from general anesthesia and starts to retch, starts to vomit, your first instinct is to grab an empty IV bottle, cut out the side of the bottle, and then use it as an emesis basin. In the UK, we use a disposable sick bowl. It's one of the things that make you think like, oh, so we do have an equipment for that. Another example in recovery is that when we try to actively warm a patient in the Philippines, we usually put a drop light. We add blankets and then some drop light. Well, in the UK, we just use the bear hugger blanket. So it's a disposable, inflatable blanket that we connect to a bear hugger and then gets filled with warm air. I didn't know we can do that. Yeah, I'm still trying to watch out if there are other packs or sets or equipment that I didn't know before that existed. And finally, number 10 on my list of things that I struggle with while living and working in the UK. I'm sure other vloggers and other YouTubers have mentioned this, how expensive it is to live in the UK. Like, if you have the dream, work and live overseas, there's always that expectation that you would earn a lot. Well, I do earn some in the UK. Like, I do have a decent earning. I knew that living in a first world country will be more expensive than the Philippines. I didn't know that it can get this expensive, especially housing. I am actually lucky to have been reserved with a unit in the hospital accommodation. At present, I'm paying £510 for a room in a 4-unit apartment, and my monthly rent is £510, but it covers everything. It covers water, electricity, council tax, Wi-Fi, and it was furnished. So I didn't have to worry about getting a fridge, a washing machine, a cooker, an oven, what else? A vacuum and cleaning supplies. So my wife and I, we can't live on this 4-unit apartment forever. So we tried to, browse for flats or rooms for rent nearby. We were surprised of how expensive they are. A 2-bedroom house could cost you £700 per month, and that is exclusive of other bills. So your electricity, gas, water, they are not included in that 700 rental fee. Money is something that everybody's struggling with. At the moment, we're living a very comfortable life. We're saving a lot, but you can't always guarantee the future, and we're definitely going to learn how to be wiser with our budgeting and with our expending. Just to summarize item number 10, living in the UK is actually expensive. Those are 10 things that I'm still struggling with while living and working in the UK. I hope I've mentioned things that you could relate to or you will learn from. So if you like this video, don't forget to click like and don't forget to subscribe so that next time that I post a new video, you'll be updated. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.